Match day 1 of the Copa Libertadores is already history. We've seen some big shocks on these first few set of games. Cagey matches have been the norm, but that hasn't stopped some teams from showing their fangs and making statements that they are here to be a bit more than filler teams and that they mean business in this competition. Which is why here in Rank Talks Bowl we're gonna predict all the games in match day 2 of the Copa Libertadores 2025. Botafogo continue to show their bad form and they have started their title defense campaign with the left foot. Away to Universidad de Chile, they started the game off decent, dominating possession and being effective with their shots, but not really bringing much threat to the Chilean goal. And it wouldn't take much for the facade to come off, as in the 59th minute, Lucas Di Lloro capitalized on the only big chance of the game and scored to give U de Chile the lead. Botafogo tried, but once again they looked toothless up front. One bad defensive play cost them the game and they couldn't recover. However, there's a saying in CONMEBOL: whenever you're on a bad streak, try beating the Venezuelan team. And that's exactly what Botafogo will try to do against Carabobo. Dumbface played against Estudiantes at home. Or so I heard, because honestly I only saw one team on the pitch. They did well in the first half to keep the Argentinians at bay for the most part, but once the floodgates opened they showed no fighting spirit and in the end the 2-0 result ended up being flattering to the home team. There is not much to discuss here. In Brazil, I think that Botafogo will go anda pa allá bobo and get all 3 points. Universidad de Chile fans must be over the moon after defeating the reigning Copa Libertadores champions. The team managed by Gustavo Alvarez set up in a perfect way to counter-attack a Botafogo team that was severely lacking in creativity. The attackers still needed to do their job, and one chance was all they needed. Sepúlveda found Botafogo scrambling at the back and passed it to Nico Guerra, who spotted Lucas Di Lloro on the right, and the Argentinian striker scored the goal that gave U de Chile all 3 points at home. However, the road does not get easier, as now they have to travel away to La Plata to face Estudiantes, who struggled to find their footing initially in Venezuela against Carabobo, but once they did, with Núñez scoring a header from a corner at the end of the first half, the game was as good as over. They did a good job to close out the game in the second half with a penalty converted by Ascasibar, but even without it they had 1 or 2 opportunities to score more goals. Normally I wouldn't trust Estudiantes in international competitions, and this U de Chile team will be a very tough cookie to crack, but with the momentum and playing at home, I believe that El Pincha will be the one to win this game. I didn't have big expectations for Independiente del Valle and they still managed to disappoint me. Away to Barcelona, where less than a month ago they had collected a 4-0 win, this time they couldn't even create a single clear chance. By the 5th minute their defense was caught in transition and Carabalí scored for Barcelona, but instead of fighting their way back into the game, Independiente relied on long distance shots, and it was Barcelona the one who could have doubled the lead with Corozo's wasted penalty. It wasn't necessary in the end, and IDV's performance was very worrying, but not as worrying as their opponents, Universitario. I did believe in Universitario, and the Peruvian team heavily disappointed me. That must have been one of the least inspiring first halves I've seen from a home team in a long time, and they were rightfully losing against River Plate by the 17th minute when Paulo Diaz scored. In the second half, sure, they had more of the ball, but only because River allowed them to, and even then they didn't really do much of anything with it. Nothing from this team showed me that they can win a difficult game, which is why away in Quito against Independiente del Valle, I believe they will lose. This really should be Independiente's chance at redemption. Ladies and gentlemen, Sir Second Castle has done it again. El Mortero Chocolate, despite the heavy rain in Guayaquil, showed up elegant both on and off the pitch. As only 5 minutes in, a wonderful counterattack was finished by Brian Carabalí to give Barcelona the lead. The defense from El Ídolo was outstanding. Independiente del Valle did not have a single clear chance this game. The only downside for Barcelona was that they couldn't get a second goal, when Janer Corozo's penalty was saved by Guido Villar. Either way, Barcelona got an important 3 points at home, and now Segundo Castillo gets to take his fancy wardrobe to the Estadio Monumental to play against River Plate. River, who didn't have to break a sweat playing against Universitario in Lima. From a corner and after a messy play, Colidio assisted Paulo Diaz for the goal that put the Argentinians in front. The interventions from midfielder Kevin Castaño on his debut were key to keep control of the game, and while Universitario slowly grew into the second half, River was never in danger of not winning this game. Now this should be a very interesting game. My mind is telling me that River should obviously win this game being at home, but my gut is telling me that this Barcelona team has the tools to trouble a River Plate team that really doesn't like to get tested, which is why I predict this game to end in a draw. Central Córdoba made their debut in the Copa Libertadores, and while they can be very damn proud of the performance that they put up against one of the most historic teams like Liga de Quito, I can't shake the feeling that this was a wasted opportunity for the Argentinian team. If it wasn't for the performance of Guido Valle in goal for Liga de Quito, Central Córdoba could have easily won this game. And it has to be mentioned that they should have been awarded a penalty in the first half when Quinteros threw himself at the ball and made contact with it with his arm. And they'll be dreading not getting more from this game, as now they have to travel away to the Maracaná to play against Flamengo, who struggled more than I thought they would but managed to get the win in the end against Deportivo Táchira. But it wouldn't be until the second half when a cross from Everton was headed by Enrique. The header then found substitute Juninho on the far post to tap it in and give Flamengo all 3 points. And listen, I like miracles as well, but unless something completely insane happens here, the win in this game will go to El Mengao. Liga de Quito let me down, and they always played for a draw against debutants Central Córdoba, and it was only because of the referee that they managed to get this objective. I'd love to get more thoughts in from them, but besides a shot in the first half, they really did nothing this game. They'll have to show a lot better at home against Deportivo Táchira. The Venezuelan team showed fighting spirit but no football against Flamengo. Getting a result was always gonna be difficult, but they were never in this game, and the moment they conceded, it was lights out. Now a real snooze fest of a game awaits, and only because they are at home against an inferior team, I will predict Liga de Quito to get the win. Alianza Lima, after their golden run through the playoffs, wanted to prove themselves in the group stage, and instead ended up adding another page to their long list of embarrassments in this competition. At home against Libertad, they played a cagey and uninspiring first half with 0 shots on target. And right at the start of the second half, they conceded to Gustavo Aguilar, who gave the lead to Libertad. Luckily for Alianza, shortly after, Hugo Martinez got himself sent off, which would give the home team 30 minutes with a man advantage to try and equalize. And what did they do? Nothing. Now Alianza has to travel away to Sao Paulo, who bunkered down against a Talleres team that had less creativity than an AI-generated art, and managed to steal the win with a great goal from Alisson in the second half. Sao Paulo may have not shown much in their game, but they are a well-drilled team and they have the personnel to do damage to any team in this competition, which is why I'm certain that they will beat Alianza in the Morumbi. Talleres must be one of the most depressing teams to watch in South America right now. They truly never recovered from losing Ramon Sosa all those months ago. There is no creativity in this team and the strikers are awful, which explains why they couldn't break down Sao Paulo. But then they had to go the extra mile and lose the game by conceding a banger goal from Alisson. This defeat was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it got Medina sacked as coach of Talleres. And while I wait for his replacement to be announced, I have to predict how they'll do in Paraguay against Libertad, who played a very intelligent game away in Lima against Alianza, going blow for blow and creating the better chances in the first half. But it was in the second half where Hugo Martinez assisted Gustavo Aguilar to face Vizcarra and put Libertad 1-0 up. However, things turned difficult when Hugo Martinez got himself sent off, but the Paraguayan team kept composed and defended the result like warriors against a very poor Alianza Lima team. Now they play at home against Talleres, and while logic tells me that Libertad should be the one to win, I have a feeling that the honeymoon phase will help Talleres edge out a draw in this game. I would like to apologize to Racing. I will never doubt you guys again. Despite their inconsistent league form, La Academia traveled away to Brazil and absolutely dismantled Fortaleza. Gustavo Costas did everything right in this game, from the setup which allowed Racing to take the lead thanks to a goal from Maxi Salas, to the substitutions which kept the ball rolling in the second half, where Almendra and Sosa would add themselves to the score sheet. We saw fireworks in Bucaramanga as Atletico and Colo-Colo gifted us the most unlikely game of the week. Only 24 minutes in, Bucaramanga were already 2-0 up against the Chilean champions with goals from Londono and Luciano Pons. However, after this, the intensity of the Colombian team dropped, which allowed Colo-Colo to get one back thanks to Javier Correa scoring a penalty before the end of the first half. The Leopards retook control of the game in the second half, and Carlos Henao made it 3-1 for the home team, but almost immediately Mauricio Isla put the Chileans again only one goal short. And as is tradition in Colombia, Bucaramanga just had to throw away the lead in the final few minutes, with Javier Correa getting himself a brace and equalizing for Colo-Colo, as this game ended in a 3-3 draw. Now Bucaramanga have to travel away to Buenos Aires, and if Racing keep playing like this, I have no doubt that they will mop the floor with the Colombian team. Colo-Colo managed to snatch a point away to Colombia against Atlético Bucaramanga. The Chileans started the game napping, and it wasn't until they were 2-0 down that they realized what was going on. Once they got serious, they managed to win a penalty which was scored by Javier Correa. In the second half, they got caught off guard once again by Carlos Henao, and the 3-1 deficit seemed like too steep of a climb. But Chileans know a thing or two about mountains, and so they slowly but surely clawed their way back into the game. First with Mauricio Isla, and with only 6 minutes to go, Javier Correa got his second of the night for a thrilling 3-3 draw and a massive point for Colo-Colo, who now host an unrecognizable Fortaleza. The Brazilian team had high hopes at home against Racing, but those hopes were quickly shattered. The team managed by Voivoda found no answers to the intensity and the offensive onslaught that Racing brought forth. And one after another the goals rained down on them without being able to respond. 3-0 was the final score, but somehow the sensation is even worse, and now they have to travel away to Chile. This is an extremely tough game to call. Fortaleza looked horrible, but I wanna give credit to their rivals, and Colo-Colo don't convince me one bit. I will predict them to win, but if they don't, I'm instantly pulling out all of my stocks from this team. I knew Nacional were finished, but what I saw from them away to Atlético Nacional was beyond sad. El Atlético Nacional's fluid 4-4-2 ran circles around their low block, and their wingers had a field day with the unorganized defense of Nacional. The first half was already a bad omen when Inestrosa scored that golazo from outside the box, but the second half was even worse. Nacional only showed their fighting spirit once they were 3-0 down, and not even then they managed to create a good chance. Normally, I'd say that playing at home against Bahia is a great opportunity to turn fortunes around, but honestly the Brazilian team impressed me. Against a superior team like Internacional they dominated, and they finally got their reward when Pulga and Luciano linked up to assist João Lucas, who towed the ball in to give Bahia the lead. However, it was too good to be true, and in the 84th minute a rebound found who else but Ener Goat Valencia to equalize and steal a totally undeserved point for Internacional. Bahia can still be proud of that performance, and if they play like that again, I think they have enough to claim a draw away to Nacional. Internacional are currently this close to getting put under fraud watch. For most of the first half they were pinned down by Bahia, who deservedly took the lead in the 73rd minute thanks to João Lucas. But that's where the quality came up clutch. A shot from Aguirre was saved by Ronaldo, but the poor clearance landed at the feet of Ener Valencia, who tapped the ball in to make the game 1-1. Internacional now play at home, but they have to be very careful because Atlético Nacional are flying at the moment. For the first 75 minutes of their game against Nacional, they reduced their rivals to atoms. It was a superb team effort, but most of the credit has to go to 22-year-old winger Marino Inestrosa, who at the end of the first half opened the score with an outstanding goal from outside the box, and then in the second half he provided both assists for Viveros and Morelos. It was a statement 3-0 victory, and playing like that I have no doubt that Atletico can damage Inter. However, my past self is reminding me of how usually Colombian teams play in Brazil, and while Internacional looked very mid in their first game, I will still trust them to get the victory at home. Cerro Porteño cooked the altitude merchants with some impressive direct football. To be fair, Bolívar started the game off better, when astronaut Hazard, aka Ramiro Vaca, scored the goal of the week with a bicycle kick to give Bolívar the lead in minute 17. But that's when the Jonathan Torres show began. Near the end of the first half, he equalized the game for Cerro Porteño. Early into the second half, he finished a counter-attack to turn the game around, and he completed his hat-trick with a header in the 61st minute. Jorge Morel would score with a header on the far post from a corner to give Cerro Porteño a fourth, and Ramiro Vaca's spectacular free kick in the 89th minute only served to add to his own personal compilation and to make the scoreline a bit more flattering. However, the job gets really tough for Cerro Porteño now, as they have to travel away to the Allianz Parque to face Palmeiras. El Verdao faced some serious difficulties while visiting Sporting Cristal away in Lima. The first half was surprisingly back and forth, with the Peruvian team having some opportunities. Estevao missed a sitter, only to score one right after to make it 1-0 for Palmeiras. But in the second half, all hell broke loose. A banger goal from Cristal was answered by a penalty converted by Piquerez to give the lead back to Palmeiras. And only 2 minutes later, another freak goal by Cristal equalized the game again. It seemed like Palmeiras would have to settle for the draw, but in the dying minutes of stoppage time, a cross from 18-year-old Luigi was headed by Richard Rios to win the Brazilians the game in extremis. And listen, I'm loving Cerro Porteño's direct attacking football, and I'm sure they can score against Palmeiras. I just don't think they can outscore them, which is why I will give the win to El Verdao. It was not a good week for Peruvian teams in general, but if anybody can be proud of their performance, it's definitely Sporting Cristal. It's no overstatement to say that they went toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the continent. They nearly took the lead in the first half with a header from Chavez that was miraculously saved by Weberton, only for them to concede to Estevao mere minutes later. However, the second half was absolute cinema. Jesus Pretel fired a bazooka from 30 yards out in the 67th minute to equalize the game. In the 82nd, they conceded a penalty that was scored by Piquerez, but only 2 minutes later, it was Martín Tabara the one to score a golazo in the top left corner to make the game 2-2. The Peruvians were earning an important and hard-fought point, but it ended in heartbreak as Richard Rios scored a header in stoppage time. And it hurts more knowing that Cristal now have to travel away to La Paz to play against Bolívar, who showed their usual sea-level selves against Cerro Porteño, and if it wasn't for Ramiro Vaca looking like Gareth Bale at the moment, it would have been even more of a demolition. The momentum in this game was never in favor of Bolívar, who despite having the possession were always on the back foot, doing nothing with the ball and getting hit every time they lost it. Listen, shout out to Ramiro Vaca for trying. I cannot stress enough how much he was trying to carry, and his 2 goals, like first the bicycle kick and then the top bins free kick, they were both delightful, but he's gonna need a lot more of that if Bolívar wanna win. He's gonna need either a team or to play above 3,700 meters above sea level. What's that? That's what's happening right now? Yeah, okay, then Bolívar is gonna win. I'm sorry, Bulo Bulo, I was not aware of your game. San Antonio hosted Olimpia in a historic night for the Bolivian club, making their Copa Libertadores debut, and what a goal to start off their history. Sebastián Viveros finding the top left corner from outside the box to give Bulo Bulo the lead in the 30th minute. The first half did not bring much besides the banger goal, but as it was common during this week, the second half is where the magic happened. Hugo Benitez scored another golazo, this time for Olimpia in the 64th minute. Only 10 minutes later, a great combination play was finished by Luis Barbosa to give Bulo Bulo the lead again. And 5 minutes after that, Richard Ortiz scored off a set piece to equalize the game for Olimpia again. The game was quickly heading towards a draw until the 9th minute of stoppage time, when Junior Barreto brought down Oswaldo Blanco inside the box and Julio Herrera scored the penalty that gave Bulo Bulo the win in their Copa Libertadores debut in an epic night. Now we'll have to see if San Antonio can replicate their success while playing away from home against Peñarol, who visited Vélez in Buenos Aires with the clear intention of getting a draw. As always, Leo Fernandez was their main threat up top, and with a delightful piece of skill in the 22nd minute he almost scored a fantastic goal. It was not a surprise then that he was the one to score early into the second half after an assist from Cabrera. Peñarol, however, committed the sin of bunkering down too early and too deep into the wrong box, and Vélez only had to keep throwing stuff at the brick wall until it collapsed. And it did. First, in the 80th minute, a great shot from Maher Carrizo, and in the 95th minute, a free kick from Brian Romero was poorly cleared by Martín Campaña, which allowed Álvaro Montoro to tap it in and turn the game around for Vélez. Heartbreak for Peñarol, but I think that if no juju happens again with Bulo Bulo, they will be the one to pick up all 3 points in Montevideo. Olimpia did everything they could to make me look like an idiot. You can blame the altitude, sure, but in the first half, where basically nothing was going on, they conceded to Bulo Bulo with a freak goal from Viveros. It took some time, but Hugo Benitez was able to equalize with a great goal of his own. Their defense, however, still looked shaky, and Barbosa was able to walk in and give Bulo Bulo the lead again. The good news for Olimpia is that they managed to equalize with a great set piece and a goal from Ortiz, but they never capitalized on that momentum. Instead, in the dying minutes of stoppage time, almost 100 minutes of football, and Junior Barreto just had to commit that foul inside the box and give Bulo Bulo a penalty to lose the game for Olimpia in spectacular fashion. Now Olimpia has to play against Vélez, who played a decent first half against Peñarol, but just like in the league, they were really struggling to find the back of the net. And they got punished for it in the second half when Leo Fernandez scored for the Uruguayan team. But that's when Vélez activated their trap card and brought in the Wonder Kids. First, Maher Carrizo at only 19 with a great goal to equalize in the 80th minute. And in the 95th minute, catching a rebound from a free kick, Álvaro Montoro not only manages to win the game for Vélez, but also becomes their youngest ever Copa Libertadores scorer at only 17. Olimpia may host the game, but the momentum could not be any different for these two clubs. However, just because I don't trust the finishing from Vélez, I will predict this game to end in a draw. And this is how my predictions are going. Well, it was a tough starting week for me, with 7 correct predictions and 9 incorrect. So let's hope I can pick myself back up in the second match day. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Remember to like, comment your thoughts down below and subscribe to not miss out on any more Copa Libertadores content. I'll be seeing you all next time.